Greetings. It is I, Madam Carmen, and we are here again for another BDSM 101. Today, we're going to be talking about the difference between punishment and discipline. Okay, so before I get into this, I really want people to understand this conversation, this discussion, this lecture, if you will, is solely based on alternative lifestyle relationships and dynamics such as BDSM, kink, even sometimes swinging, but we are more specifically talking about the dynamics within the BDSM lifestyle. So we're not talking about children when it comes to punishment and discipline, although there are certain similarities and it is very synonymous in certain ways, but this is pertaining to adult behaviors and behavioral corrections pertaining to adults within BDSM and kink lifestyles.
Also, before we get into it, don't forget to like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I appreciate all of your support.
Often when you hear the term punishments, it's in relation to brat and brat tamer dynamics within the lifestyle, but they could be used in any dynamics, in any power exchange. But punishments and punishments are definitely different. Punishments are a form of punishment, but they're made and they're created with the intention to be fun, to be more of a light-hearted exchange versus a disciplinarian or behavioral correcting exchange. The intention should not be behavioral correction when it comes to punishments, because how are they going to correct their behavior if every time you try to punish them, it's actually fun for them? Punishments are serious and they're meant to uphold behavioral correction. Punishments are upheld so a submissive or a bottom, more so a submissive because we're talking about power exchange, but I use the term bottom, or I would say S-type, in reference to who is punished, because S-type is all different forms on the scale of submission. So not just a submissive, but maybe a brat, maybe a little, maybe a servant, any of those titles when it pertains to the S-type or the submissive. A punishment is used for them to uphold their behavioral correction and hold them accountable for their actions. Let's be mindful that a lot of submissives enjoy masochistic actions, masochistic behaviors, masochistic interactions and exchanges, which is why punishment is more fun and delightful and enjoyable for those types of submissives. A punishment should not always have to be a masochistic infliction of pain that they enjoy. If they like being spanked, why would we spank them to enforce punishment?
That doesn't make any goddamn sense.
To enforce a behavioral correction. There are other ways and other variables that determine how we could punish our submissives. If you truly demand obedience and discipline from a submissive, you must know what it takes for them to release power based on the commands set by the dominant. The dominant myself, I enjoy a obedient submissive. I'm not much of a brat tamer, although a lot of brats attract themselves to me and the way that my practices are, but they already know that I am not coming to play. I am very assertive when it comes to my commands and demands and what it is that I require from and expect from my submissives. So I tend to enjoy the pleasures of my submissive obeying those orders.
I'm calling the shots,
not defying them. Reason why is because it helps me reward them in such an enjoyable way. I love rewarding my submissives after they express obedience, after they corrected their behaviors or actually put in place the protocols and the discipline that it is that I enforce within our dynamic. So if, for example, if I told my submissive to make sure that every morning at 6 a.m. they get up, they wash the dishes, and they make me some tea, if every day they do that thoroughly, they will be rewarded. And it may be in a masochistic way. It may be some spanks because they enjoy their spanks. It may be a little bit of sex or a little bit of bondage because they enjoy those types of things. Not using those different types of pleasures or activities as a form of punishment, but as a form of pleasure. I also enjoy training my subs based on rituals and structures. Not every sub has the same rituals or the same structures because every human is different. I explain this so many times in so many of my courses and my lectures that we should never just group all submissives in the same box and expect the same outcome from all of them. All of them have their own experiences. All of them have their own boundaries. All of them have their own triggers, traumas, limits. And it is important for us to don't take those for granted, but take advantage of those different key points and actually figure out what is a good structure for that particular dynamic. Training my submissive gives an opportunity for growth of eroticism as well as pleasure to be enjoyed and explored. I am not about generic processes. Generic processes may lead to a dead end when it comes to specific types of submissives. If this submissive is triggered or traumatized by spanks, why would I enforce spanks as a form of punishment or a form of pleasure? If it's not something that is on their kink or fetish list and it's on their limitation list, why would I, because I say, oh, well, all of my other submissives enjoy spanks, so you should too. If it's something that you desire or require as a dominant for your submissive to enjoy, then maybe re-evaluating and revisiting the dynamic and in its entirety is a good idea.
Okay.
Again, in this lecture, we're going to discuss the difference between discipline and punishment. Now let's get into it. I'm going to start with punishment. Punishments are used as a practice to discipline a submissive who defies or mismanages their protocols or their rules. Punishments are a part of the agreed upon negotiation process that the dom and the sub have pre-negotiated prior to their power exchange. That means that the submissive also is aware of the potential punishments that are implemented or in place when they do defy or break the rules. These punishments are, of course, discussed and consented to. It's also understood what behaviors are expected to prevent punishments, or I should say to avoid punishments. So this is a form of behavioral correction to enforce those power dynamics. And I would always suggest that every punishment matches the offense. So if the punishment is, if the offense is, like I said earlier, my submissive forgetting to serve me tea in the morning, but did wash the dishes, then the punishment shouldn't be in the entirety of the whole protocol, but for that specific protocol or that specific rule within our dynamic. Overall, it should be understood the consequences of misbehavior or rule breaking or defying of those particular orders. One form of punishment is in response to acting out or misbehaving. Another form of punishment is for defying orders or just overall disobedience. Defying orders or disobedience is the submissive knowingly breaking these particular rules or orders or agreements that were previously set. Another example is refusing to fulfill the role as a submissive, not bringing me my tea, not rubbing my feet, not doing exactly what I told them to do within our dynamic. Power reinforcement is also a form of punishment, but this is to reinforce the power dynamics within the power exchange. It's a sort of role maintenance, if you will. So we're trying to maintain our role as dom and sub. If you defy my orders as submissive, then I have to correct your behavior in the form of punishment, which is also to manage and maintenance that particular role, reinforcing that role. This is a great way for a dominant to show who's really in charge. Who's really in charge in this dynamic is the dominant, and that should be enforced whenever necessary. Whenever a sub defies or disobeys any structure, any law any structure or any rule within your dynamic, it should be reinforced and you should command your dominance. So this is a reinforcement of your responsibilities as a submissive or a dominant. So I'm going to express what my responsibilities are as your dominant, and I'm going to also reiterate your responsibilities as a submissive. Other forms of disciplinarian actions are used in forms of mantras or rituals. This is not specific to a more spiritual dynamic, but it is in place and it is practiced within spiritual dynamic. It would be kneeling for hours, that would be reciting certain mantras that were previously instilled within the dynamic. Repetition is a great example of that. I will not misbehave. I will not misbehave. Madam Carmen is who's in charge, and repeating that continuously. Whatever ritual or mantra that has been enforced within your dynamic is what will be reinstilled within your punishment or your behavioral correction. They're of course expressed and discussed prior to and during the negotiation process. These are of course mantras and rituals that are within the dom and the submissive's limitations. Safety protocols are also very important when it comes to punishment. They still have every right, every submissive or S-type has every right to call red, green, or yellow. Remember, this is a form of role play, even if it is a power dynamic that you plan to have lifelong. Understand that everyone still has the rights to the autonomy of their body. So if the punishment feels like a little bit more of a form of abuse, or if it's violating their consent or violating their limits, their limitations, then it's important for a realignment within the power exchange. It's important for the dominant to understand what has caused a trigger or what has caused the submissive to call red or yellow during a form of punishment, during a behavioral correcting act. Speaking of discipline, let's get on discipline. Discipline is what is expected and required within a dom-sub relationship or a DS dynamic. Great way to show respect within that dynamic as the S-type to your D-type. Purpose of discipline is for growth and for intimacy and vulnerability, as well as giving the submissive a sense of pride and a sense of purpose. Giving the dynamic, the DS dynamic, a sense of pride and purpose is what the discipline is used for within the dynamic. Discipline sets the tone for what is expected within that dynamic. From verbiage, protocols, posture, mantras, speaking tones, the list goes on. That is how we enforce discipline within our dynamics, which is why every dynamic is different. So all of those particular expectations may differ with every dynamic that is established. These are core values that represent consistency and purpose within every dynamic. If I use working out or fitness as a form of example, a person who goes to the gym every day consistently and has a routine is a form of discipline. They're disciplining themselves to stay consistent, to have that routine, to maintain the integrity of their health, whether it's practicing by using different proteins or diets or working on specific parts of their body. That is how they have established discipline within themselves. So that is their self-discipline. Within a dynamic, a dominant can enforce discipline on their sub in the same form of fashion. A DS dynamic is where a submissive may not have the control or the self-control or the self-discipline to be able to enforce that discipline upon themselves. So therefore they require or need a dominant to be able to help enforce those forms of discipline for them. Whether it is a fitness dom, I am a fitness dom, as well as so many other roles that I play within other people's lives, within the different dynamic structures that I have set forth within my practices as a dom. As a fit dom or a fitness dom, it is important for my submissive or S-type to report to me when they have arrived to the gym, how long they've been at the gym, what did they work on at the gym, what did they eat, what are they planning to eat later on, did they take their supplements, did they stretch. These are things that they have to report to me in order for that discipline to be able to be consistent and instilled within their everyday processes. So while discipline is the process and the system within the power exchange, punishment is a great way to enforce that discipline or reinforce that discipline. So like I used the example earlier as being a fitness dom and enforcing particular practices to establish a good discipline, a good daily discipline for my submissive. If they forget to stretch, then there is a form of behavioral correction that needs to be upheld. And that is that punishment, right? So, oh, you didn't stretch? You didn't do your 15-minute stretch? Now you have to do a 45-minute stretch. And I have to watch it. Now you need to start. Another way to enforce that behavioral correction through punishment is not only saying, oh yeah, because you didn't do your 15-minute stretching and you have to do 45-minute stretching today, if that's something that they have been doing pretty often, not stretching, then now it's not a 15-minute stretch, it's a 45-minute stretch that has to be monitored. And who wants that? If I was a submissive, I'm like, dang, now you have to monitor me. You have to monitor my stretching for 45 minutes now. At first it was just 15-minute stretches upon when I felt like I was able to stretch as a submissive, whether it was 15-minute stretches in the morning, 15-minute stretches in the afternoon or the evening, or that may be set. That may be a part of their discipline, that they're supposed to be stretching every day in the morning before or after their workout. Whichever is within that particular dynamic and that power exchange, whatever has been discussed and negotiated and agreed upon and consented to within that dynamic must be upheld. So your discipline actions are upheld through behavioral correction and through structure. If those things aren't followed, if they are defied, punishment is enacted. Other tools used in the shed of discipline are routines, behavioral reports, verbal representation, protocols, and rules, guides. Physical discipline is pretty self-explanatory, but an example of that would be spanking. And that form of discipline is upheld as a form of punishment and not punishment. This would be a form of physical discipline that is considered training. So someone who is being spanked every day to train and build up their pain tolerance when it comes to impact play. So every day we're going to start with a 15-minute flogging. Next week, we're going to go up to a 20-minute flogging, then 25-minute flogging, then 25-minute flogging, as well as 25 minutes of hand spanks. So spanking with your hands. These are ways to build up someone's pain threshold and create a certain discipline within that dynamic. These are tasks that promote a physical endurance. How much can you endure as my submissive when it pertains to spanking or impact play? It's not specific to impact play. You got bondage with chains, ropes, wraps, whatever has been previously negotiated within your dynamic. If your submissive says, I would love to be able to be restrained a bit longer, to be able to enforce or assert more discipline for myself. I don't want to just be bound for 15 minutes. I want to see if I can be bound for 2 hours and be able to endure that discomfort, if you will. And how long can I endure this discomfort to please you as my dom? Can you help train me? Is usually a great way to establish those disciplinarian processes. Not only is it building the endurance, it's also building the tolerance and the intimacy between the dom and the sub. And you have the behavioral and protocol disciplines. Focus on rituals, attire, and the overall physical presentation. Also, verbal cues and tonality play a role within this form of discipline. Eye contact is also important in various power dynamics. These vary based on what is required from the specific D type. For me, eye contact is very important. The tonality of how you're speaking to me. I want you to represent me publicly as requested, as required. So if we're going to a event, a kink event or a space where we're going to be sharing and exchanging energy, I would like for you to wear the required color of the attire that is expected of you. And it may not be full clothes. It may be lace. It may be latex. It may be mesh. It may be fishnets. It's suit. It just really depends on what I'm requiring from my specific submissive for that specific activity. These help promote those rituals. So if the ritual is every day my submissive is supposed to get up and wear their jock strap every day when they come and bring me tea. It should not be that they come in here with boxers on, or they come in here nude, or they come in here with just a robe on. If you have your robe on, that's fine, but as long as you have your jock strap on, that is what is required within our negotiation process. That is what we negotiated prior to our power exchange. As far as our power dynamics have been established, this is what was expected of you, and that is what I will enforce. Task management is very important within the behavioral and protocol disciplines, because in order for us to enforce that discipline, the task needs to be managed. So whatever task that is, like I said, bringing me tea, I need you to be donned in the clothes that I required or I expected from you. I need you to say the things that I need you to say. Yes, madam. No, madam. Here's your tea, madam. Would you like any more sugar? Would you like any more honey? Would you like any more agave? Any of those particular requests, that is a part of the task management. Making sure that every task is managed and enforced based on what was previously negotiated. Now, I want to be very frank about BDSM in its entirety. Sex is not a requirement within this lifestyle. It is not what is expected in every dynamic. You will find and run across many different dynamics that don't have any sexual exchanges, any sexual advances, anything of that nature. It is just discipline and behavioral building, endurance building. It is no form of sexual anything, whether it's fluid exchange, whether it's the massaging of certain genitalia or anything of those sorts. Those things may not be included in certain dynamics. If it is what is expected within the dynamic, then that is different. Certain dynamics do expect and require certain disciplinarian actions through sexual activities. So certain sexual practices that can be a form of sexual discipline would be that you have and receive a certain amount of orgasms from your specific dom or D type within that day or that dynamic. Being able to edge is a form of sexual discipline. Saying you're not allowed to have an orgasm unless the dom has permitted you to. So this more intimate form of discipline, sexual discipline, as if you will, are established by rules in which have been previously negotiated and what is expected from the submissive as a D type. So sexual discipline could be determining when and where sexual behavior occurs. It can be through routine or training sessions. So as I mentioned earlier, we were talking about different impact sessions. After that impact session of training them on their endurance, you can also incorporate edging, orgasm control, forced orgasm, stimulation, sexual sensory deprivation. You can incorporate so many different things as long as it is previously negotiated prior to the exchange. Usually based on the expectations of what is desired from the dominant. So a submissive can ask all day long, can I come, can I come, can I come? And if that dominant doesn't see it, appropriate for you to come within that moment, you will not be having any orgasm anytime soon. This is a great way to build up that discipline and that endurance. And it also is a great way to connect within that dynamic. The begging doesn't help, but the asking and trying to practice those other rituals and mantras and rules and upholding what is expected of you, you may be rewarded and granted the opportunity to have that orgasm. As I said, sexual pleasure is usually enforced by the dominant, either through orgasm control, orgasm deprivation, forced orgasm, no self-pleasure, or self-inflicted pleasure. None of those things unless it has been confirmed and permitted by your dominant. Chastities are a great example of pleasure control. Chastities are not just for the penis owning humans, but also there are chastities we know in the history of medieval times that chastities were used as a way to enforce and uphold a woman's virginity, right? But now we are in a more common time where chastities are a great way to enforce control over pleasure as a whole, and not just, oh, you can't have sex ever, and you never will have sex until I say you can, but more so of, you will not be receiving any pleasure in that area until I say so. Chastities are a great way to control and deny orgasms. They control because the chastity is usually enacted or intact and locked using a key. That key is held by a key holder, and that key holder has control over whether or not or when you will orgasm. It's a great way to build a sense of suspense and anticipation for that S-type. Also grants them the opportunity to build a self-discipline process. You have to learn how to be more self-disciplined. Defying the orders of what the dominant has required and expected of you also results in that punishment. And it's not a punishment that you should be anticipating. It is a form of punishment that has been previously agreed upon if you so shall break any of these particular rules or defy or disobey what is expected of you. Sexual etiquette and sexual protocols are also a form of sexual discipline. This is where the S-type or the submissive would ask for the permission to self-pleasure or pleasure with others. If they're like, hey, there's a particular person I would love to play with, you have to ask permission from your dominant if you are able or allowed to even participate in any form of sexual pleasure. And if they say you are allowed sexual pleasure, is it sexual pleasure with self or sexual pleasure with others? What is it that I am able and permitted to do within this dynamic at this particular time? The dominant could withhold the opportunity for pleasure with others because they want to meet that particular person. And they want to train you to be able to have more power over your autonomy when you are exchanging. Being able to discern whether or not this person is practicing ethically and safely, and they have respected your limitations as well as respected your levels, your ability to consent. A D-type like myself sometimes expects and requires their submissive to wear certain attires during a scene. And that could be during a sexual discipline training. A way to present yourself to me as a gift for sexual pleasure, as a form of respect and honor to their dom as a form of sexual pleasure. There is a form of sexual pleasure that derives from the attire that a submissive wears. Whether that is the latex or the fishnets or the hooded mask, all of those things can be a form of sexual pleasure for your dom. So if that is required of you, don't defy or disobey, because a punishment is expected right around that corner.
You understand me?
Leashes and chokers are a great way to enforce that sexual discipline as well. Wearing your leash or your collar in public shows ownership and shows loyalty and shows respect and honor to your dynamic. Great form of discipline that is used as a punishment is sensory deprivation, being deprived of several or specific senses. This would include cuffs, blindfolds, gags, or even muzzles. It's also important to understand that safety protocols are not just specific to safe words, but gestures and respecting of people's boundaries. Everything must remain consented to and previously negotiated prior to play, prior to exchange, prior to training, prior to any form of interaction or engagement within your dom sub relationship. Always check in. Always ensure whatever is happening, whether it is a disciplinarian act or practice, whether it's you enforcing rituals, mantras, or any structure building, that you are checking in to make sure that your S-type is still alert and aware of what is actually happening. Sometimes mantras and rituals can become a form of hypnosis, and sometimes it could bring someone into a subspace or a sense of a alternative mindset or mind space where they are hypnotized in a way that doesn't allow them to understand that they are still present in a certain situation. So that's why that alert and oriented check-in is very important. Sure that they are coherent and that they are still consenting to what is going on, whether it is to do push-ups as a fitness power exchange. So if I'm telling my submissive, I need you to do 25 push-ups, and you see them huffing and puffing and their face is turning really red, it's important for you to check in. How's your breathing? How's your respiratory? Do you need a break? Do you need some water? What is it? But it's not to go easy on them just continuously, but it's important for us to just still humanize our S-types. It's humanizing the people that we are having these exchanges with. Punishment and disciplines hold a relationship. They both hold a distinctive purpose. Discipline is proactive and structured. It's formally about creating rules and setting protocols and routines. Also about guiding a submissive's behaviors through consistent routines and expectations, as well as the training. The training is very, very important. Like I said earlier, it upholds the integrity of the dynamic. It gives the power exchange purpose. Without discipline and structure within a power exchange, within a dynamic, what is this? What are we doing? Are we just in a relationship?
Why are we here?
Because even in a vanilla relationship outside of power exchange and power dynamics, there are still expectations, boundaries, and forms of discipline that must be upheld. It is just, the difference is you have to both within that dynamic, or all within that dynamic, have the power and the discipline to uphold it and endure it. So it is your responsibility to uphold the discipline of respecting your partner's limits, respecting your partner's desires as far as what is it they enjoy in the form of pleasure. And it's important for you to vocalize those different things. The difference within a power exchange is the responsibility of the D type to also uphold that for the S type. It's important for that D type to enforce those things and uphold that, and not make too many changes without it being previously discussed. If the routine is consistent every day, that is creating a form of discipline for that submissive to be able to practice, uphold, and establish within the dynamic that can be rewarded. And if they don't uphold it, then they can be punished. Overall goal of discipline is to uphold growth and obedience. Punishment serves as a corrective tool within the dynamic. Punishment serves as a corrective tool within the framework of discipline. Both rely on trust, consent, and consistency. Communication is definitely key in all of this. Transparency is definitely key in all of this. When practiced intentionally and ethically, you can definitely make reinforcements and make different suggestions and alternative practices and measures that best align within your dynamic. Just because a routine is set doesn't mean that there is no room for change or no room for improvement. It is important for us to always be open-minded, especially as a dominant, that maybe these 25 push-ups aren't helping. They aren't a great form of punishment. They aren't a great form of behavioral correction because it's causing them to have asthma attacks or respiratory problems or heavy breathing or whatever. Let's try to reevaluate and revisit the structure on our behavioral correction, the structure on our disciplinarian processes that we're trying to enforce to our submissive to uphold. Both discipline and punishment are great ways to deepen the psychological bond, establish structure, all while building an intensity and chemistry within your power exchange. That is all for today. When it comes to punishment and discipline, understanding the difference, but also understanding the relationship that they do hold and have. While discipline is something that we practice and we try to maintain and uphold while our submissives are trying to endure, punishment is a result of those forms of discipline that has been instilled when they have been defied, when they need to be corrected, and when they need to be reinforced. Punishment is a great way to be able to do that. It's a great process, and it's a great way to put us back in check, to realign the dynamic. Discipline is just a great way to create the foundation of your dynamic. While I am Madam Carmen, and this is my BDSM one-on-one class, I appreciate you guys for being here with me. Make sure that you guys subscribe, hit that like button, comment, share, give me any tips or give me any comments or anything that you would want to talk about in the comment section, whether you need some advice, some tips, or you want to give me tips, or you want to add to this particular discussion, please put it in the comment section. I love to hear from all of you guys. Peace and happy kinking.